Please give rise to bodhicitta, thinking I will establish all mother sentient beings, numerous in number, at the level of perfect, unsurpassable enlightenment. To that end, I will listen to this profound Dharma and put it into practice. Thus, with bodhicitta, please listen to this Dharma teaching. The Dharma we humbly speak of today is a torch lighting the way to freedom, complete instructions on the preliminary practice of the profound and secret heart essence of the Dakini, comprised of virtuous beginning, middle, and end. Having covered the virtuous beginning, we are now looking at the virtuous middle, the main body of the text, which is comprised of two parts. Part 1, how to follow a spiritual friend, the route of the path. Part 2, the main explanation of the stages for setting out on the path. We've covered Part 1 and we're now looking at Part 2, which involves, first of all, Section 1, the general preliminary practices for each session, and Section 2, the specific preliminary practices for the yogas of the two phases. We have covered the first, and we're now looking at the second, which itself is comprised of two subsections. First of all, subsection 1, the common preliminaries that cultivate the field of one's mind stream, namely the 4 mind changings. And secondly, subsection 2, the uncommon special preliminaries that sow the seeds of the profound path in 5 stages. So having covered the reflection on the 4 mind changings, we're now looking at subsection 2, the uncommon special preliminaries, comprised of 5 stages: taking refuge, bodhicitta, meditation and recitation of Vajrasattva, mandala offering, and Guru Yoga. We're currently looking at refuge, the first of these 5. The route, the gateway to all paths of Dharma, the entrance to the path. And the explanation of refuge itself has 2 sections. First of all, a few general points to be understood. Second, the instructions on the points of training in this case. So, the first section, with all of its subdivisions, the nature of refuge, different types of refuge, the nature of faith, the different types of faith, and so on. We've covered all of those points. And we now come to the second subsection, clarification of the points of the training in this case, which we began yesterday. So we paused yesterday at a bit of an awkward spot, but anyway, I think it's not a problem. Most of you here are familiar with the Satya Ngondro, the visualization for which this was describing. So now I will read through the lines of liturgy for this part of the Ngondro liturgy itself. So this text in English begins at the bottom of page 163, the universe with its beings, and so on. So in terms of an explanation of the visualization, we reach an explanation of the visualization on the top of page 164. So Guru Moshe in the form of Lancizen, and He whose majesty overalls appearance and existence. So if we jump back to the explanation, commentary on page 159, we covered the explanation of this visualization of the refuge tree up to this point. So how does Guru Moshe seated on the central branch of the wish fulfilling tree, what does he look like? So we visualize Guru Moshe, so our root Guru, appearing in the form of Guru Moshe. So Guru Moshe is the essence of our root Guru. So in this case, so Guru Moshe, who in essence is our root Guru, And above his head, above Guru Rinpoche's head, we visualize Gyurming Ngondro, who was one of the great disciples, one of the 13 rainbow body disciples of the first Dujun Lingpa. And also Gyabji Dujun Rinpoche himself. So we visualize again Guru Rinpoche in essence. In the center of the refuge, we visualize Guru Rinpoche, who in essence is the root Guru Gyabji Dujun Rinpoche. And what does Guru Rinpoche look like? What clothes is he wearing, and so on? It's really important that we're familiar with these details. Guru Rinpoche's clothes, what he's holding in his hands, the insignia and so on. For Guru Rinpoche and his 8 emanations. We talk about 8 emanations of Guru Rinpoche, which you can read about in the chronicles of Guru Rinpoche the Pimakatam. Guru Rinpoche took on different forms when enacting different activities. And you can read about these in the chronicles of Guru Rinpoche, the life stories of Guru Rinpoche found in of which there are different versions. We don't have time to go through all those details. But anyway, here we're visualizing Guru Rinpoche in the form of Guru Nangshe Zenlun, the glorious subjugator of existence and appearance, who in essence is none other than one's root Guru. So then you might wonder, well, if we're visualizing Guru Rinpoche but seeing him as in essence our root Guru, why don't we just visualize our root Guru himself, like the physical form of our root Guru? Why do we need to kind of mingle our root Guru with the appearance of Guru Rinpoche? Well, there are very profound reasons for this. So why do we visualize Guru Rinpoche? Well, one of the benefits, the reasons, is to remove obstacles from our mind. The same goes with the Yidam deity. When you visualize the Yidam deity, whichever deity it might be, you understand that in essence that is none other than your root Guru, and that also the essential deity or the essential Guru is none other than the true nature of your own mind, already present within you, inside you. But nevertheless, even though that's the case, to visualize the Guru or visualize the Yidam, taking this external appearance of Guru Rinpoche has many benefits, such as preventing obstacles from arising. So in his Konim Gurus from afar, Gyabji Dujun Rinpoche says, to paraphrase, this is something like, without needing to rely on whining, longing, supplications, I see the Guru of self-awareness uncontrived within myself. Okay, so actually, there's not those lines I was after. Later on in that same preg, Dujun Rinpoche says, the essential Guru I discovered in my own heart, I've discovered within me. So the real Guru is one's own self-awareness, one's Rigpa, natural awareness. So we visualize this taking the form of Guru Rinpoche, who in essence is one's Guru. So we visualize the Guru in the form of Guru Rinpoche, who in essence is one's root Guru. But essentially, the real essence of this, or the real Guru, is none other than one's own Rigpa. Guru Rinpoche. The real guru is none other than our own intrinsic awareness, but it's difficult to merge with that, to mingle with with that intrinsic nature, straight away at least. So therefore we visualize Guru Rinpoche. We visualize the Guru before us in the form of Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche is the embodiment of all Buddhas of the 3 times, and who is especially has a special compassion, blessings, and the power for the beings of us beings in this present degenerate age. So these are just some of the reasons, profound reasons why we practice visualizing Guru Rinpoche before us. So, even though the essential Guru, the real Guru, is present within us, this is difficult to realize. It's difficult to realize and manifest. Even after extensive study, practice, accumulation, purification, and so on. So this is why we have these practices of skillful means, beginning here with refuge, bodhicitta, vajrasattva, mandal offering, and so on. The whole point of these practices is to reach the point where we realize directly that we are indivisible, we are inseparable from Guru Rinpoche, or from the ultimate, from the Guru, the real Guru. So now we're on page 159, describing the appearance of Guru Rinpoche, what he's wearing, and so on, and we reach the description of his hat. So Guru Rinpoche takes different forms. We have the form of Tsogye Dorje, the late one Vajra, which you can see in the Tanga behind me, and then Guru Nangsi Zinan, who holds the Vajra on his right knee. So that's the specific form we're visualizing here. So in various texts we find details about Guru Rinpoche's hat or crown in the words of my perfect teacher, and in other texts, how the lotus crown with 8 petals of different colors, with a vajra and feather on top, a vulture feather on top. So, when it comes to Guru Rinpoche's clothes, it's not just like some ordinary outfit, an ordinary set of clothes. Every one of his garments holds profound meaning, and symbolism. And the details of this you can read about in other texts. So, when Guru Rinpoche left his kingdom to go and practice in the 8 charnel grounds, then he's said to be wearing a specific type of hat. Not sure how to translate it. Likewise, when he was born from the Dhanakosha lake, then he's described as wearing another type of hat. So the type of hat that we visualize Guru Rinpoche wearing here is the deerskin hat, which is the same hat he wore when leaving his kingdom in Udayana, relinquishing his kingdom and going off to practice in the charnel grounds, which is a kind of flat-topped hat. So similarly, when Guru Rinpoche transformed the funeral pyre in Sopema into a lake. And then he's described as wearing another hat. So these different hats in different instances. So when the king of Zahor, first of all, he tried to execute Guru Rinpoche and built a funeral, trapped in a funeral pyre, but then Guru Rinpoche transformed the funeral pyre into a lake. That's the lake that we now know as Sopema. And then the king of Zahor was filled with faith and offered Guru Rinpoche his royal garments, including his crown, which is called the lotus crown that liberates upon sight. So in the various paintings of the refuge tree for this Ngondro, the Sate Ngondro, some of which must have been made during Kebje Rinpoche's own time, show Guru Rinpoche wearing the lotus crown that liberates upon sight, not actually a deerskin hat, as is described here. Anyway, either way is okay. So over by the shrine there's a tanka of Juju Rinpoche, not the one on the throne, not the image on the throne, but I don't think the image on the throne, but the image behind. Juju Rinpoche is wearing one hat, and this is the shape of the deerskin hat as mentioned here. And there's another hat, one of the other hats Rinpoche mentioned. Again, I'm not sure how to translate it, but you sometimes see photos of Chadra Rinpoche wearing this hat. It's like a blooming lotus. Anyway, for more precise details about these, you can ask the tanka painters. They'll be up with all of these details. So in any case, on his head is the resplendent deerskin hat decorated with a vulture's feather. The vulture feather. The vulture is the greatest bird, the most excellent bird to be found in the sky. So this vulture feather adorning the crown is a symbol of the pinnacle of vehicles, Ati Yoga, the great perfection. In the crook of his left arm, he holds his princess consort concealed in the form of a Khatvanga. So one important point here. So when we talk about Khatvanga, there are different types of Khatvanga. We could translate Khatvanga as trident. So the deities are visualized standing on a Rudra, standing on a male and female demon and demoness, who are painted as holding a trident, just a common trident. But this trident, or this Khatvanga, is not just a common trident that is held by the demon and demoness or other deities. This trident or Khatvanga is adorned with the three skulls, fresh, rotten and dry. It's adorned with 9 interlinked chains, bells and ribbons and so on, all of which have profound significance. So the Khatvanga is not just a common bare trident like the trident Shiva holds. So this is important to understand this. Sometimes tanka painters, artists, are not aware of this distinction. And they end up painting the demons and demonesses that the deities are trampling. They end up painting them with a trident like Guru Rinpoche's trident, which is completely wrong. So the trident that they hold should just be a bare trident, like the trident that Shiva holds. So some of the younger, newer tanka painters make these sorts of mistakes and end up painting mistaken things. And then these days you find a lot of mistakes in newly painted tankas. So these are important points, especially the artists here should keep these points in mind. So the Katvanga here, Gurumshi's Katvanga, is his princess consort Mandarava, appearing in a hidden form, taking a hidden form of a Katvanga. When Hayagriva is holding a Katvanga, it is his consort in hidden form, his consort Vajravarahi. So it's not Yeshitsogya with Hayagriva, but his consort, the consort Vajravarahi. So the deity is given consort in secret form. So when the consort is not explicitly present, then they can take this secret or hidden form of the Katvanga. So you wouldn't have Gurumshi in union with Yeshitsogya and then also holding a Katvanga. It wouldn't be like that. His 2 feet are in the royal ruling posture. If you look at the Goyagaba Tantra, the great Goyagaba Tantra and its commentaries like Chokchu Minso, then you'll find explanations of these different postures and what they express. You manifest an expanse of brilliant, shimmering rays of light, so it's not ordinary, not comprised of flesh and blood, not comprised of material substance, but of light. All of this is made of light, brilliant, shimmering rays of rainbow light. There's a lot we could say about the word manifest as well. Anyway, we visualize him, Gurumshi, visualize Gurumshi facing you, thinking of you and all beings with a loving, joyful heart. So directly facing you, before you and directly facing you, not facing some other direction or looking away. So the Buddha, enlightened state or Dhammakaya, has no front and no back. It's beyond distinctions such as front and back. Like in one of Dosung Chidinoma Rinpoche's commentary, he describes the transparency of enlightened body, transparency of enlightened speech, and so on. So this means the Buddha's form has no front, no back. They are always facing you, never showing their back to you. And so from whichever direction you look, you see the Buddhas like as if they're facing your direction, in your direction. And their speech, when we talk about transparency of speech, it means their speech is unimpeded and there's no distance. So the enlightened speech reaches you wherever you are, however near or far. Transparency of mind, enlightened mind, describes the fact that enlightened mind knows the true nature of all things, but also the relative nature of all things in their multiplicity, without exception. So a bit like scientists looking at things in a microscope and seeing everything. So it's not possible for a material form to have these qualities, right? So the Buddha's body is transparent in the sense it's not material, it's immaterial, and has these qualities of transparency. So is facing us, in front of us, and facing us, looking upon us. Visualizing him facing you, thinking of you and all beings with a loving and joyful heart. With a loving and joyful heart. When you supplicate Gurumshi, when you supplicate the Buddhas, they will respond to your supplications, they will respond to your prayers. Like as explained in Nipa Rinpoche's commentary on the 7-9 prayer to Gurumshi. And then we have Dilgu Khyentse Rinpoche's commentary on the 7-9 prayer, where he says, you just recite the 7-9 prayer 7 times, and then Gurumshi will come. Gurumshi will be sure to come, he would say. He will appear and come before you. So visualize that. Gurumshi's compassion and aspirations and blessings are limitless, inconceivable, and especially for us beings of the degenerate age, this dark age replete with the 5 degenerations. There's really no one with compassion and blessings equal to Gurumshi. So visualize in that way. Then above the crown of his head, above the crown of Gurumshi's head, seated upon a lotus, sun and moon, is the all-pervading Lord Gyurme Ngondro, who was the root guru of Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche. Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche's root guru and the disciple, one of the main disciples of Dushu Lingpa, and also of Jamyen Khyentse Wangpo. So now, from the next few paragraphs are describing the lineage gurus. So first is Gyurme Ngondro Wangpo, the root guru of Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche. So going back to the visualization of Gurumshi, we said we're visualizing Gurumshi and understanding that in essence Gurumshi is our root guru. So we said here the root guru is Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche. But so we actually, depending on who we are and who our gurus are, we need to change this a bit. So in my case, I could visualize Gurumshi being in essence the root guru Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche. But I could also think of my root guru Kimmo Chögye Rinpoche, and so on and so forth. So you can, when we say in essence your root guru, who that root guru is depends on who your root guru is, right? So you can change your visualization, your mindset accordingly. So above Gurumshi, who in essence is our root guru, we visualize again Gyurme Wangpo, Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche's root guru, and above Gyurme Ngondro Wangpo we visualize Dushu Lingpa, who is Gyurme Ngondro Wangpo's root guru, and above Dushu Lingpa, Yeshe Tsogyal, and above her Pamasambhava. This is the line of transmission, this is the lineage. It is such a short, close transmission. There's only it's 3 or 4 lineage holders between Gurumshi and our own teachers. So, and there's something very special about short lineages, something really special and potent about the blessings and the power of their blessings. So you can think also about the lineage of the Longchen Nyingtik. So I think Rinpoche started with, say, Kimwa Chuki Rinpoche, and then his guru Buddha Rinpoche, then his guru. Sorry, I've already forgotten. A few lineage masters to Jigme Rinpa, from Jigme Rinpa to Longchenpa, and then Longchenpa to the source. So this line of this short line of perfect inconceivable gurus, unbelievable, completely unbelievable. So that's the incredible lineage of the Longchen Yingtik. Sorry, I described it as a short lineage, but that was wrong. It's not a specifically short, but it's an incredibly blessed and inconceivable lineage. And then we have the lineage of our Dujum Teresa teachings, which is so incredibly short. Kyabse Jushu Rinpoche, Gurmenge Nongwangpo Dujum Rinpa, and then Yeshe Tsogyal and Guru Rinpoche themselves. So it's such a short lineage, and one of the great qualities of a short lineage is that the blessings are especially powerful because there hasn't been time or opportunity for the blessings to be tainted by samaya transgression. Samaya transgressors can do so much damage and interference. So when you have a long lineage, then there's more samaya stains, there's more samaya transgression, right, that's occurred over the years and sullied that lineage. It's like a rust or a stain that stains the lineage and affects the blessings. So this is why a short lineage is said to be an excellent thing. So even with a long lineage, the lamas themselves, the lineage holders themselves, will be perfect, flawless, with completely stainless samaya and perfect qualities. But in between them, the students, all of the students they would have had, and so on, there would have been a samaya transgression there, right? And that would have affected things. So, Gyurmenge the Wangpo is in the form of a diamond holder, a vajra holder, observing the three vows, meaning a fully ordained monk. So observing the three vows refers to the personal liberation vows, bodhisattva vows, and tantric samayas. So an recent example of such a master, vajra holder, endowed with the three vows, would be Choshi Rinpoche, who was a perfect bhikshu, in addition, of course, to being a bodhisattva and realized Vidyadhara. And then you might say, well, Dushu Rinpoche, he had a wife, he had a sangyam, so is he not a vajra holder with three vows? Well, in essence, he is, of course. But nevertheless, it's said in the scriptures itself, like in the treatise on the three vows, that the best type of vajra holder is he who is endowed with the three vows, meaning the three vows, including the bhikshu, the three vows with the bhikshu vow. Nevertheless, the one who has primordial wisdom, they are supreme. So this is discussed in treatises like the treatise on the three vows. Anyway, his body is white in color with a tinge of maroon, and he looks a little old. He wears a pandita's hat on his head and is dressed in monk's robes and a brocade cloak. His right hand makes the gesture of supreme giving. His left holds a skull cup brimming with nectar. In his belt is a purva, a killa made of meteoric iron, and he's sitting cross-legged. So what's the reason he's holding a purva made of meteoric iron? Why is it strapped in his belt? Why is he wearing a pandita hat, and so on? Well, we won't go into these details, but all of these details actually holds great symbolic meaning. There's a reason for each and every one of these details. And moving on to Dujun Lingpa, so above grooming in the Wampo is Dujun Lingpa. He's imbibed the vital instructions. His body is dark red in color, and his beard reaches down to the level of his heart. So similar to Jada Rinpoche as you see in photos, this long beard reaching down to his heart. There's something special about that. Wide-eyed, he stares straight ahead with staring eyes. His long locks are tied up in a knot on his crown. So half his hair is tied up on his crown, and half of it just hangs loosely down. He's wearing a maroon silk gown with long sleeves and a white cotton shawl. So exactly what these different garments look like, the Thangka painters in the audience will be right up on all these details. So here we have sort of everyone we need is gathered here. We have Kempos, we have Tulkus, we have Thangka artists, we have different types of scholars, we even have Techans and so on and so forth. All these days we could just ask AI. He has conch shell earrings and so on, and he's sitting with his left leg slightly stretched in the royal ruling posture. So that's the royal ruling posture where the left leg is slightly stretched out, extended, and the right leg drawn in. And there are other postures where the right leg is stretched out and the left leg drawn in, and so on. And we have there's a posture called the Dortab, which we can translate as like the walking posture. Which means, what this really means is one leg just slightly raised up, but this is often illustrated, drawn. It's often drawn in the wrong way, with like a foot raised high up, so that you can see the sole of the foot. That's not what's meant. In any case, when someone's walking, they don't move their foot like that. Khenpo Daso Rinpoche would say that the Dortab, the walking posture, if we translate it like that, refers to the right leg, like with Yeshe Tsogyo standing and one of her feet just slightly raised from the heel, and slightly in front. So, sorry, with the walking posture, it would be one foot just slightly raised. But this, in any case, Dujun Lingpa here is sitting in the royal ruling posture, which is to say his left leg is slightly stretched out in front and his right leg is behind and drawn in. Above him is Dakini Yeshe Tsogyo, white in color, tinged with red. She plays a skull drum in her right hand, while her left hand, in the gesture of meditation, holds a skull cup full of nectar. And she's seated in the half lotus posture. So, cross legs, but so it's say half Vajra posture. So half lotus posture, sorry. Basically cross legs, but kind of half cross legs. So half lotus posture is basically cross legs, but instead of your legs crossed one on top of the other, they're just one in front of the other, like that. So, as I said, the Thangka painters will be or should be very familiar with exactly what all of these different postures are and so on. It seems if you study to be a Thangka painter, it would actually help very much one's generation stage practice. In some tankas these days you see deities in union. The female consort is shown as like embracing the male but with their two arms stretched out straight, like Rinpoche was showing. Some tankas that apparently were commissioned by Dongsa Chininobu Rinpoche were written like this, and I wonder if that was really correct. When it said that the consort entwines or embraces the deity, it's described as embracing and entwining, so surely that means not with the arms stretched out straight like that, but wrapping around the male, right? Anyway, maybe there are sort of different instances or different ways that the consort's arms can be, but in short, there are all of these. These details are important. I think we can say, in short, these details are important, and they're described in the respective scriptures and texts, which Thangka painters should be familiar with. These days, sometimes you see tankas with details that maybe are not found in texts or that are added by the painters. I'm not sure. There's she mentioned by name one of the students in the audience who's a very skilled painter and also a disciple of Kyabje Rinpoche, so he would be an authority, someone good to ask. Similarly, so Rinpoche was talking about how sometimes you see paintings of Ngondro Yeshitsogil and so on these days with a third eye drawn, which you don't really find mention of in the text, so there's nothing essentially wrong with that, but at the same time maybe it's something just added in by Thangka, by the painter, which is not really correct. And then likewise the Dakini's Bhaga, the liturgies say with a full Bhaga, and this is painted these days in kind of questionable way. I wonder if it's really correct the way it's being painted or not. So anyway, I'm just raising these issues. It's not to say that I'm an expert. I'm not expert in these things, in Thangka painting and so on. But I would just mention them to raise the question and say that we should be very important about these things. And the Thangka painters, most especially Thangka painters themselves, need to be very important about all of these things, these details. And when a painter paints a deity, they need to rely on the scriptures that describe how that deity appears. So, above Yeshitsogya is the mighty conqueror Pamasambhava Guru Rinpoche in the dress of a great Indian Pandita. He holds a vajra in his right hand, in his left a skull cup and long knife vase. Then above his head is the knowledge holder Shri Singha, light blue in colour, wearing a red Pandita's hat, a blue undergarment and the 3 monastic robes. Leaning with his right hand on the ground, to the side of him his left hand on his knee, touching the ground in front. Above him is the master Manjushri Mitra. His right hand is in the gesture of giving protection. So this is the gesture of giving protection. Rinpoche raised his hand in front of his chest, right? And then his left hand is in the meditation gesture on his lap. So with mudras, we should really, or mudras or gestures, we should be aware of what the different mudras are. We have the mudras of the 5 Buddha families, for instance, which we do on a regular basis. She was chanting some lines from the Truma liturgy where they make those mudras. When it comes to that part of this liturgy, we're all able to do those mudras very fluently. But when it comes to explaining actually which of those mudras is which pertains to which Buddha and so on, then we can't actually identify which is which. So we should be able to. We should know which mudra is which. So with the mudra of supreme gift, then it's the hand placed on the knee. Sometimes it's explained as the hand palm downwards, sometimes palm up. In any case, Kemodasa Rinpoche, as far as I know, he never studied tanka painting, but he knew all about it, how deities should be painted and all these details. There was a tanka of Yamantaka, painted by a Bhutanese painter, a really expert tanka painter. So maybe through some contacts, Khenpo-Dasa Rinpoche was able to commission this Bhutanese really expert painter to paint tanka of Mipa Rinpoche and also Yamantaka and maybe one or two more for him. They were exquisite tankas, really exquisite tankas that Khenpo-Dasa Rinpoche then took with him from Bhutan to Tibet, and after Khenpo-Dasa Rinpoche passed away, we offered them to Drudha Rinpoche. Together with a Mipam statue of Manjushri, a really precious statue of Manjushri that Khenpo-Dasa Rinpoche had. And in this Manjushri statue contained a relic pillar of Mipam Rinpoche. So, Khenpo-Dasa Rinpoche, so when I was with Khenpo-Dasa Rinpoche, when I was young, studying with him, Khenpo-Dasa Rinpoche would sometimes talk about these things, about the different qualities that tanka should have and these details. He was so learned in all of these things, and he had these exquisite tankas himself that he'd commissioned, but being young and, I don't know, we just didn't really pay much attention to those things, and so I don't really remember the things he said about tankas and the painting of deities and all of those details, proportion and attributes and so on. I just didn't retain any of it. It's a bit like that story of a groom who's invited to his bride's home, was shown all the family's treasury of wealth, gold, silver and so on and so forth. He remained completely unimpressed, and they took him to the backyard and said, "These are our cows," and he was really thrilled by the cows and started shouting out, "Cow, cow," a bit like that. So above Manjushri Mitra is Garab Doje. Above Garab Doje is the Sambhogakaya Vajrasattva, who's the Sambhogakaya Vajrasattva, endowed with the 13-fold Sambhogakaya attire. Above his head is the absolute body or Dhammakaya Samanta Bhadra, brilliant blue in colour, naked in the full Vajra posture or diamond posture, in union with consort Samanta Bhadri, who's brilliant white. can visualize all of them shining majestically in the expanses of their own light, canopies of rainbow lights and circles. So these are the lineage masters for this specific lineage. So furthermore, in the air around the space around the lineage teachers, seated one above the other, visualize the Buddhas of the 5 families of conquerors, so the 5 Buddhas, and all other Buddhas of the body of perfect enjoyment, the Sambhogakaya and their peaceful and wrathful forms, and so on. So these are all of these Buddhas of the 5 families and so on mentioned here, and on the next page 162, and not illustrated in the Tanka painting of the refuge tree, but still one should visualize them. One should imagine them all present before one. So we should also visualize the Lord of Secrets, Vajrapani, and other Buddhas who manifest as the chief bodhisattvas, the 6 ornaments of Jan Buddhavipa, the 80 great accomplished ones, and so on. The treasure discoverers, the Tertans, 100 Tertans, and so on. And all the other hundreds of thousands of beings who attain the level of supreme accomplishment in the hearing lineage of individuals. So we visualize all of the enlightened ones of the wisdom lineage, symbolic lineage, and hearing lineage. So when we talk about these 3 lineages, how's it translated here? The mind lineage, or sometimes it's translated as wisdom lineage, the symbol lineage, and hearing lineage. There are different ways to identify or define these. Different scholars have defined them in different ways. So here Dushu Rinpoche defines them in a very very comprehensible way. He says the Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya Buddhas, I think, are pertain to the mind lineage, and then from the Lord of Secrets, Vajrapani, down to King Ja and so on. All those masters belong to the symbolic lineage, and then the 6 ornaments and so on pertain to the hearing lineage. So excuse me, I was looking at the wrong part of the text. Who were the masters of the mind, symbol, and hearing lineages? So from Samantabhadra down to Vajrasattva, Vajrapani, masters of the mind lineage. Those from Garudoji down to the great master constitute the symbolic lineage, and those from the Lord, subject, companion, and others down to our root teacher are the masters of the hearing lineage. And Rinpoche ran through this in more detail. So this is very clear and very clear presentation of these lineages. Sometimes Garab Dorje is included in the mind lineage, and sometimes there are different definitions of these 3. Khyentse Dushu Rinpoche wrote his famous Calling the Gurus from Afar prayer, right? And I actually wrote a commentary on that. I wasn't asked to write the commentary, I just wrote it because I was so inspired by that prayer. I've always loved that prayer from a young age. I just love that prayer, so I wrote a commentary on my own initiative, and I then showed it to Khyentse Dongse Chinenobu Rinpoche. And I made reference to the Kabab Dun, the 7 lines of transmission there. And when Khyentse Dushu Rinpoche, Khyentse Dongse Chinenobu Rinpoche was reading through and kind of editing my commentary, he erased that bit out. He said, "You should omit that bit. It's not quite right." And he was right. So in some contexts we find mention of the coupled doing the 7 lines of transmission or 7 lineages. So for a detailed explanation of what those 7 lineages are, you can look at Pimosa Dongat Limpus Namtar. So they include these 3 lineages, mind, symbol, and hearing lineages, but also add in the lineage of the treasure teachings and so on. So anyway, Dungsa Rinpoche made that edit to my commentary. Rinpoche was so learned, so expert, so realized and so learned. But his learning didn't come from study, actually formal study. There's so many there are masters in our lineage who are like that, right? Incredibly learned, but their learning doesn't come from formal study. It's rather the result of their realization, sort of radiance or outflow of their realization. So next, on page 163, visualize the 4 branches spreading in the 4 directions. So just about the 7 lines of transmission, or the 7 lineages. These are mentioned briefly by name, reference at the bottom of page 162, but you can read more about them in Pimosa Dongat Rinpoche's life story and so on. So next, visualize the 4 branches spreading in the 4 directions, and on each of them a broad lofty lion throne with tiered cushions of lotus, sun and moon. So on the front branch is So in the refuge tree we have all 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha are all present. And in the Vajrayana context, the Guru Yidama Dakini embody the 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So the Guru is the Buddha, the Yidam visualized in the front branch of the Dharma, and the Dakinis visualized, the Dakinis and Dharma protectors visualized in all the surrounding space are the Sangha. So, as it says here, on the front branch is the specific jewel of the Buddha, the Mandala Vajrakumara. On the right branch is the universal jewel of the Buddha, the victorious line of the Shakyas, namely Shakya Muni, Buddha Shakyamuni, surrounded by the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate Kalpa and the Buddhas of the 3 times, and so on, all in the Manakaya form, the body of manifestation attired as renunciants. So now we're going through who is present on each of these branches. But the visualization of the refuge tree this way, with the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, the Guru Yidama Dakini, embodies both the refuge objects of the Vajrayana, the special refuge objects of the Vajrayana, the 3 roots of Guru Yidama Dakini, and also the refuge objects of the Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and Sangha jewel, as taught in the vehicle of characteristics, the sutra level of teaching. So they're all complete in this refuge tree. On the left-hand branch is the universal jewel of the Sangha. On the rear branch, encased in a vast lattice of light, in the form of countless sacred volumes stacked into a huge majestic mass, resonating with the spontaneous hum of the vowels and consonants. So here, sacred volumes. The sacred volumes here refers specifically to the Pecha format, right? Traditional Pecha format of texts. This is what we are meant to visualize in the refuge tree. So now we still have Pechas and people using Pechas, but books are on the rise. Book format is on the rise. So maybe in 10 or 20 years, how are we going to visualize the refuge tree? And maybe a decade or two later, there'll be no books, just iPads and so on. So everyone loves books, right? The book format for its convenience. And even more convenient that is when you read ebooks. You can search for texts and specific words with the search function. It's so easy. Anyway. So who knows? This is to say that maybe in a decade or two or three, when describing the visualization of the refuge tree, then you'll have to explain the students, a pecha means this. It's this kind of text with a rectangular shape and it's wrapped in fabric, and you'll have to kind of take one out and show it to people to introduce them to a pecha, so that they learn what a pecha means, right? Because maybe they won't be used anymore because everyone finds book format so convenient. Kemma Dazarimshi would say how important pecha format is. It's how it's so important to stick with that format instead of using the easy book format. And previously I think Rimshi was saying or making a joke about different positions of the refuge objects here. Some are above, some are below and so on, and how this is problematic to say things like this these days with human rights and this idea of equality and what have you. So the pechas that we visualize the Dharma in the form of sacred volumes, all stacked up behind Gurumshe on the rear branch, resonating with the spontaneous hum of the vowels and consonants, the alikali. So this is the source, the vowels and consonants. The alphabet is the source of all of the teachings, right? It's the alphabet that comprises all words, all communication. So all the teachings come from the vowels and consonants. The vowels and consonants themselves, the whole alphabet, comes from the syllable A. So the vowels and consonants, the alikali, can be explained in incredible detail, actually, in the sense of it can be explained in incredible detail and depth. And actually the meaning of the two phases, generation and completion phase, are all contained within the vowels and consonants and so on. So everything is contained within the vowels and consonants. During sadhana practice, after mantra recitation, we chant the Alikali mantra, A, I, E, and so on. Why do we do that? To make up for any omissions and additions in our mantra recitation, any mistakes. So, when doing mantra recitation, then it's important to recite Alikali when doing mantra recitation to make up for those mistakes. When doing group puja in monasteries and so on, we do the mantra recitation in the sadhana, but you don't really accumulate a significant number of mantras, right? So maybe it's not so important in that context, but if you're on retreat and seriously engaged in mantra recitation, then it's very important. In between all these and all around on the outside, visualize the specific jewel of the Sangha, the Dakas and Dakinis, and Dharma protectors. So the females are facing inwards to present the siddhis and blessings from escaping, the males are facing outwards to protect obstacles from entering in. They are awesome, powerful and skillful, and all endowed with the eye of wisdom, all massing together like summer mist, or like billowing clouds. Visualize them like this. They're beyond increase or decrease, they're beyond fluctuation, beyond change. As the Prajnaparamita says about the natural state, there's nothing here to clear away, there's nothing here to add, there's nothing to increase or decrease, just as it was before, so it is later. This is the unchanging natural state. So, Guru Rinpoche, the Dakinis, Yidam deities, they are all of a single identity, a single state manifesting in these different forms. But in identity, they are one. They are the union of bliss and emptiness that is your root teacher's mind. So develop the complete certainty that all the objects of refuge are constant in their compassion. So constant means beyond fluctuation, increase and decrease, completely constant and unconditional in their compassion, equal in their realization, arising as nothing other than the manifestation of the great primal wisdom. So all of the figures here, all objects of refuge here in the refuge tree, Guru Rinpoche, who is in essence our root guru, all the lineage gurus of Guru Mingad and Wampo and so on, up to Guru Rinpoche, up to the three Kaya lineage gurus and so on and so forth, the Yidam Siddhakinis, all of them, and none other than the manifestation of the great primal wisdom. They are the manifold display of a single nature. That single nature that is none other than your root teacher's wisdom, your root teacher's mind. Then we come to the liturgy from the Ngondro text itself. The universe with its beings is a delightful pure Buddha field, and so on. So these lines describe the visualization we've just been through, and they're so clear and beautiful. So just reading through these lines attentively, you can get an idea, a very clear idea of what it is we need to visualize. It all just comes vividly to mind. So on page 165, all these possess the activity of stirring the depths of psychic existence with the wisdom of knowledge, love and power. So stirring the depths of psychic existence means to dredge the three realms of samsara. To dredge meaning to empty out, to turn it upside down so that the contents just empty out, to empty samsara, completely empty samsara. This is the compassionate activity of Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche and all of these, the refuge objects, are embodiments of knowledge, love and power. They're present as leaders, guiding us all and thinking of us with great compassion. So all us beings includes, so you in the center, your father on your right, your mother on your left, all other loved ones behind you, and behind and surrounding you, all other beings. So Khema Dasa Rinpoche would explain it this: when taking refuge, visualize on your right your father, your left your mother, in front of you your enemies, and behind you all other beings. But then, in the words of my perfect teacher, Patrul Rinpoche gives a slightly different explanation. He explains that all beings should be in front and surrounding one. So, a different idea. And I wondered why there was this difference, why in most texts like here we find this explanation. enemies in front, right on your right your father, your left your mother, and all other sentient beings of the 6 classes behind you. But then, so I wondered why Patrul Rinpoche explained it in a different way in his words, my perfect teacher, but then, sorry, I missed the details, but Rinpoche mentioned Khenpo Yunga, Yunhan Gyatso. Khenpo Yunga, in one of his texts, explained that there's slightly 2 different ways of visualizing oneself and beings in front of the refuge tree. So it seems there's 2 different styles, and either is okay. Either as explained here or as explained by the words of my Patrul Rinpoche and the words of my perfect teacher. Our parents are so precious. So here, when we're taking refuge, we visualize our father on our right, our mother on our left. Our parents are so precious and important. These days, it seems practitioners are just really failing to acknowledge the value and worth of their parents. They sometimes think that just giving parents some money, sending them some money, going overseas, earning some money and sending some of that back to the parents, that's enough. But yeah, that's good, looking after your parents' material needs, but more important and more beneficial than that is actually to spend time with your parents, to show them care and affection and love by actually being there. So please keep the importance of parents in mind, the importance of lovingly caring for one's parents. This is a really important point for practitioners, for monastics, for lay people, for whoever you are. So it says here, imagine your present father on your right, your mother on your left, enemies in front, and to all others behind. Even though, so this is exactly the same as Khenpo Daze Rinpoche would explain it. But in the words of my perfect teacher, like I said, we find a slightly different explanation. But then in one of Khenpo Yunhan Gyatso's teachings, he says that both the style explained in words of my perfect teacher and also the style explained here are both the tradition and instructions of Patrul Rinpoche. Khenpo Yunhan Gyatso in this text, he says he is following the instructions of Patrul Rinpoche. So it seems Patrul Rinpoche would teach both ways, both as taught in the words of my perfect teacher and also in the way we find explained here, which is also the way Khenpo Daze Rinpoche would teach. So you should imagine that you, surrounded by all beings in this way, are leading the chant. So you're acting as the Umse or the chant master, leading everyone with a beautiful voice. And you all show your respect physically by joining your hands in the fashion of a lotus bud on the top of your heads. You express your respect verbally by the sonorous recitation of clear melodious words. So it's really important to chant clearly, especially if you're an Umse chant master. It's so important to chant correctly and clearly, especially these days when we have a loudspeaker. So if the chant master makes a mistake or isn't pronouncing well, then that those mistakes are kind of projected far and wide. That said, there are differences in pronunciation. The word Pao is described by is pronounced by those in Central Tibet as Be. even though that's not really how it's spelt. So one time, so I'm generally not skilled in reading aloud, in speed reading. Never trained in speed reading. One time, Kinromishi had me read some pages aloud from the Ngondro commentary. Maybe wanted to check my pronunciation or something. So I can't read fast, but I can read clearly. So he didn't kind of correct my. He didn't make any. I didn't make any mistakes. He didn't correct me on anything until I got a few pages in, and then I pronounced Pal as Bal, and he said, "Can't you pronounce Pal as Pe?" He preferred that pronunciation, which is how they recited in how they pronounce it in central Tibet. So Kinromishi didn't, except for that, didn't scold or criticize my reading. But then with some of my other teachers, well, mainly with Dongse Chinin Rinpoche, when I would be with him, he would just be constantly scolding me, and also scolding my brother, the late Shiva Rinpoche, telling him his eyes were like the eyes of a thief and so on. Anyway, when chanting, as it says here, we should chant with clearly and melodiously, so with correct pronunciation. So clearly and correctly. So typically it said that one should chant, chanting or recitation should be clear, correct and melodious. It should have these three qualities. You should express your respect mentally with the firmness of your devotion and confidence as you think, whether I fall sick, whether I'm in pain and so on. And from now until that enlightenment, I put my hopes entirely in you. So this is how we need to practice, placing our trust entirely in the three jewels, in the objects of refuge, thinking no matter what happens, whether I die, whether I get sick, my hope is entirely up in you. And my hope is I entrust myself entirely to you. So whether you're getting into a car or getting into a plane, you think whatever happens, whether I live or die, I place my trust in you. So, otherwise, if you practice, or let's say you practice Chur, the practice of severance, where you're going to be severing your self-clinging, but then you step into a plane and you're overcome by fear, the fear of flying, well then it shows your practice isn't working. So in the practice of Chur, we go off to a charnel ground and practice Chur their severance to cut through our self-clinging. And anyway, the point is to cut through our self-clinging and to tame our minds. Otherwise, and if we can do this, and if we can entrust our hope entirely to the three jewels, just as it says here, whether I fall sick and so on, no matter what happens to me, good or bad, from now on until enlightenment, I have no other refuge, no other hope than you, then we won't be overcome by fear, the fear of flying, the fear of traveling by car, or what have you. The thought, okay, I might die in a plane crash. Well, yep, you might die, but no matter what happens, whether we die or live or what have you, we place our trust in the three jewels. Teacher, three jewels, in you I put my trust. Lead me this very moment out of the terrible ocean of psychic existence, I beg you. So now it's whatever it be, our mind, we should be of a one-pointed mind, meaning without, in Tibetan we say a two-pointed mind, meaning a mind of doubt. You cannot accomplish anything if your mind is undecided, basically. Your mind is divided or undecided. For instance, if a needle has 2 points, you cannot stitch something up. You need 1 point, a single point, and then you can accomplish things. So this is anyway, this Tibetan example of that describes doubt as being like a two-pointed needle. You just never accomplish anything with a mind of doubt, right? So in the past there were two people. One was a Shiva follower and one was a Ram follower. So this is a story to illustrate the importance of having one-pointed faith, wholehearted faith. So there was one was a student of Ram, one was a student of Shiva. So of course the Ram student thought, no, Ram is the best, has the greatest blessings, it's not Shiva. The other said, no, it's Shiva. Shiva is the best, he has the greatest blessings, not Ram. If you pray to Shiva, it's better. He's the real, the most trustworthy. But both were practitioners. Both thought their chosen deity was the best, and then they got into an argument about this. They argued and discussed, but they just couldn't come to an agreement. And they decided, okay, to prove and decide which of our deities is supreme, let us both jump off a cliff, and whoever's deity is supreme, that deity will come and save them, and then we'll know for sure which is the really supreme deity. So they both leapt off a cliff. And the Ram disciple called out to Ram, Ram, save me. And the So the Ram disciple jumped first. The Ram disciple jumped first, and as he was falling through the air, he shouted out to Ram, Ram, save me, I pray to you. And a great gust of wind kind of came up and saved the disciple, took him gently down to the ground. He was saved. And the Shiva disciple saw this, and he thought, oh, well, it looks like Ram is really the genuine deity. And this sowed a seed of doubt in his mind. But then he jumped, and if he jumped, a moment earlier, he would have jumped with complete faith, called out to Shiva, and probably saved as well. But now he had some doubt, right? Because he'd seen the Ram disciple be saved by his deity. So he jumped with a seed of doubt, called out to Shiva, but nevertheless, because his faith was now shaky, he was not saved. Anyway, this is a joke, but the point of this story is to illustrate the importance of having one-pointed faith. It's only with one-pointed faith that the blessings will enter you. So the story isn't to say that Ram will save you and Shiva won't save you. It's that your one-pointed faith will save you. So in the prayers to Guru Rimshi, we say, I pray to you with one-pointed faith, I pray to you free of doubt. So our faith needs to be like that, free of doubt, and without 2 points, literally, one-pointed, wholehearted. It's the power of one-pointed faith opens the gateway for the blood, and thereby allows the blessings to enter us. So there's a saying, there's 100 lamas you have faith in, one lama who will guide you. So 100 And this is the case for most of us probably, right? There are 100 lamas who you might have faith in, right? But one lama who, like when you reach death, one lama who you just surrender yourself to, and that's that one lama that will lead you, that will guide you, that will save you. So this is a Tibetan saying. It's a really good saying, right? 100 lamas you have faith in, but one lama who will guide you. So Rinpoche was struggling to remember this saying, and then his attendant Kyavne reminded him of it. Rinpoche said, he's really shown his worth today. This morning we already got into one quarrel, but now he's proven himself. So we'll pause here, dedicate the merit, and resume after the break.